Stone Mason here. When I was 12 years old in 1973, still a fairly hot iron excited by my newly declared atheism at 11, I struck on that iron an interest in politics that continues to this day. The impetus for this interest was the burgeoning scandal in Washington, D.C. at the time that involved President Richard Nixon, and that took its name from the hotel where Nixon operatives had broken into Democratic National Headquarters, the Watergate Hotel. Throughout the Watergate scandal, new information was forthcoming nearly every day and for sure every week that went by. Unbeknownst to the public at the time, the two Washington Post reporters who broke the Watergate story had been contacted by Mark Felt, the second in command of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and were being fed information by Felt, who swore them to secrecy that lasted 30 years. Felt's nickname was Deep Throat, which was the title of a movie of the day that popularized a cocksucking technique, but I digress. One of the gems of information passed along by Felt, a soundbite that has since become part of the language, was "follow the money." What Mark Felt was telling them was that there was a paper trail of monetary transfers and payments from the White House to the burglars, the veritable smoking gun that linked the petty crime to the President of the United States. A year later, that president became the first in history to resign the office. Woodward and Bernstein, the two reporters, indeed followed the money. This same technique has other uses as well, especially when it comes to finding organized religion's staunchest supporters and discovering their motives. It's as simple as following the money. When a non-believer takes a stand against religion, everyone turns to the clergy to hear the supportive voice of religious doctrine from those charged with knowing it the best. But is it really best to ask for a defense of religion from someone whose living depends on it? Clergymen become clergymen by their own volition, at least in this country. They are not selected or drafted. They choose to become preachers, pastors, and priests of the Christian gospel as a job. I have no doubt they are devout to choose such a job, yet they see the spreading of the knowledge that they believe will somehow save humanity as something they could and should be paid to do. As an 11-year-old, just discovering science and my own disbelief in religion, this was quite a nail in the coffin of religion for me. If Jesus is so great and passing along the information about his deistic lineage is what will save us all from a burning hell, why would those charged with such an important message insist on being paid for that duty? It suggested that they wouldn't pass that message along if they weren't paid. By the same logic, when anyone spoke out against religion, it was those same mercenary philosophers who answered the call of apologetics. From what I had read in the Bible, Christ himself never asked for anything in return for his message, not even protection from crucifixion, which as the Son of God he had to know about ahead of time. How could he have come from heaven and returned to the same heaven and not have known what the deal was going to be on earth? His dad planned the whole Megillah, right? And Jesus never got paid, nor did any of his disciples. When I found out that the minister of the Methodist Church I had attended up until my declaration of non-belief was getting paid, even as an 11-year-old, a light bulb went off in my head. Of course, that guy's going to say there's a God and hell and blah, blah, blah. If he doesn't, he's out of a job. As I grew and paid more attention to things like evangelical television shows, with their donation phone numbers plastered on the screen for the duration of the show, under the guise of prayer lines, it became gruesomely obvious to me what a gargantuan business religion is. Even when TV evangelists like Jimmy Swaggart and Jim Bakker were exposed as atrocious hypocrites, whoring and fucking women on their staff and embezzling, they still never gave up their faith. Not publicly, anyway. Because they knew that after the storm blew over, the scam would still work. Which it did for both men in time. Even faith healers like Peter Popoff, who has been exposed as a fraud over and over by James Randi and others, can still go back to the well. Such is the degree to which the religious faithful are willing to quell their fears of death by pouring money into the coffers of charlatans. And we all know, if we stop for a moment and think about it, we all know why. Because money talks and bullshit walks. And if they give enough money to God's self-declared representatives, surely to Christ it will improve their chances, if not cement them, of getting into heaven. Surely God understands commerce, and that someone who gives money their whole life to his cause deserves front row seats or a beach house or whatever the accoutrements in heaven are. And the guys spreading God's message confirm it. Because it is they who profit the most from this kind of thinking. And all you have to do to know this is follow the money. This is Scone Mason. See you next time. Follow the money.